No. Hamlet. Hi y'all, and welcome back to the beauty related side of my channel. And today we have a review for y'all that if any of y'all know me, then you know that this palette that I'm about to review in this video is a color scheme that is a sort of end-all be-all for me. If you can't tell by the eyes and the nails, my favorite color is green. Back on my alternative makeup journey, we started with the red eyeshadow, and that was a whole thing. And then, for whatever reason, I had not invested in green on my eyelids, and then when I did, it was a train that just kept going. And as such, my investment and interest and intrigue in green palettes has led me to try a multitude of varying formulas and colors. Like I said before, green is the end-all be-all color story for me. I've got Gemini, I've got Blood Money, I've got ColourPop, Just My Luck, which was probably the start of my long descent into my green loving life. And honestly, without further ado, because this is going to be a long one, because we have got a crap ton of eyeshadows to swatch, we are going over the P. Louise Money Shop palette. It was a while ago. I don't know if it was a will I buy it or an anti-haul, some sort of video, beauty-related eyeshadow video, where I talked about this palette. That was an extended period of time ago, and I'm not sure why. But for whatever reason, I had discourse about this palette. Like I said, I can't remember if I anti-hauled it or if I talked about wanting it, and it wasn't released for months afterward. The reason I knew this was released is I was casually scrolling through Trendmood to find stuff for my anti-haul, and I saw that it was released, and I took myself to that site so freaking quickly. I was like, I need this in my life. I want to have it. The color story, everything. I need it on my eyelids. I need to review it. It just needs to be a thing in my life. And so here we are with the gloriousness. This is a huge heckin' honkin' chonky palette. It is ginormous, and I honestly kind of hate that. You all know how I feel about big, giant, ginormous, thick, crazy to store palettes. Although I must admit, if you're going to put this much eyeshadow in a palette, I guess it's going to have to be huge. And we have, starting out, this gorgeous, amazing row of delicious greenness that has very little pasty, and we've got color saturation out the wazoo. I am wearing on my illustrious peepers today, strike a pose right here, then on set right here, and action on that outer corner area. And then we took the money shot right here, all up in there, and then on my inner crease, we have hard cash right here. I mean, we can just try to keep this from, we can just take a moment to love and appreciate in awe of this glorious greenness. And then, lo and behold, we have right here this like greeny, grungy brown. Before I knew they were two palettes, before I knew there was one palette, I thought it was going to be two palettes, and I was like, I want them both. And one of y'all were like, it's actually one whole big giant palette. And I was like, yes. I mean, look at, I mean, it is everything that I could possibly have asked for. I mean, I could not have curated a better, I mean, do you see we've got the greens, and then we've got the grungy greens, and the khakis, and the olives, and the all kinds of wonderfulness. I mean, this is just absolutely amazing. It's like taking the best of everything that I love, green, grunge, whatever, and morphed it together into one giant palette. So I'm just gonna get into swatching this because, like I said, you saw them eyeshadows. This is gonna be a long haul going on through them eyeshadows, and then we'll talk about my experience on the palette on a whole. So honestly, to make life a little bit easier, I'm gonna start with this one so I don't have to worry about it falling out of this one while I'm talking about the top one. But we're just gonna go on into this. We're just gonna, I think we're gonna go whoop, 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 rather than whoop, whoop. Brought myself in a little closer for the swatch situation going on. We have Memories right here. I will say all of the little impressed embossing, they are definitely trying to have a Jeffree Star moment going in. I feel like the theme of this, I understand it's green and it's money and all sort of that, but I do get Jeffree Star the Blood Money vibes from this thing going on here. So we've got Memories, which is definitely a pasty setting shade. We have got Backstage, which is, I will tell you all now, the shimmers in this palette are just absolutely phenomenal. Pasty setting shade. Green, glittery, golden goodness. And then we're starting to get some pigment. That's a wrap production. The mattes feel really, really nice. Making paper on here, getting into that nice grungy, browny, greeny, yellowy goodness. Like, my mom took one look at this and she was like, I would never put that on my eyes. And I'm like, I know, that's why I love it. When I did the Modern Renaissance, she was like, why? And I was like, because it's a vampire palette. Then Script, which is, again, the high definition. Just mustardy, greeny, khaki deliciousness. Then So Flashy, which is a really pretty just brown whateverness going on right there. Get the swatches. I mean, just, you see the greeny, delicious reflections in this? Like, this is all just, this is a magnum opus. This is a thesis in green. This one, I love that. Love that. Oh my goodness. And then that one, it's a brown shimmer, golden, coppery, bronzy, whatever. Then Panorama, another shade. I mean, basically color-wise, unless it's like this pasty, everything I love. There is not a shade in this palette that I don't look at and I'm like, I need that. Then Ballin' right here, which is again, ooh. Then 4K. I really like, I mean, I love, it's like brown, but it's like greeny and grungy and yeah. That going on here and here and here. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. Then we have Motion Picture, which is again, I mean, do you see that? That just like screams Melt Cosmetics Gemini. Love that right there. Polaroid, Real Love. This is like that, it's like a little bit of a browner version of that MAC eyeshadow color thing that like every other brand had in like all their palettes like freaking like 10 years ago. Just going on here and here and here. Ooh, just, beautiful, amazing. Then we have Theatrical right here, which is a beautiful, that like mossy, just absolutely beautiful. Whoever they got to do the color story and the undertones on this, absolute perfection. We have Director right here, which is again, you take the green and then you grunge it up with the brown and then you have a nice grungy brown 90s lipstick. Oh, I did Theatrical and then I went down to that one. Really what I mean is Perform right here, which is again, the colors and the flashes and all the sorts of beautiful, unique finishes in here is just absolutely amazing. Let me just, ooh, ooh. Now, last but not least, we have Riches right here. I think I did that one. I don't know. We'll just do all of these. Director right here, which is again all these beautiful, and then Nomination. Let's see if I can come up with a place to put these. Yeah, we'll just have here going on there. That is a terrible swatch and going on like that there. Okay, so here we have the swatches for the first segment here. I mean, each and every single shimmer on here is a standout. I mean, like that one and then that one. They're just some absolutely gorgeous, greeny, undertony, sparkly, reflective, beautiful freaking pigments. I will say some of the mattes, specifically the darker ones down here, definitely get a little bit drier, a little bit more powdery. We'll talk about the blendability after we do all the swatches, but just, I mean, look at that. I need to top that all over every single kind of lipstick I have. I love these mustardy tones. All in all, just a really nice color scheme. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have got it, and I'm reviewing it just all my ish. I do remember I was talking about wanting a shade like this for like lipstick, and one of you all said, I can't remember the name of the company, but they had like a liquid lipstick bundle that had all this kind of shades. It was originally $110 and it was like $25 with a whatever. I did get that. I'm gonna do a whole lip swatch video on that, but just absolutely gorgeous. Then next up we have the top of the palette, which is just, it is immaculate, it is stunning, it is everything I could possibly want. I guess we're starting with the dark shades first, because that's going to be a heck of a lot more awkward. So let's just go on in here. I will say I don't want to get too much into the formulation and everything like that until after we swatch, but this one, I mean, a lot of these darker matte ones here are fairly powdery, and usually the way that I like to do my eyeshadow, how I pick mine up, is I kind of tap it in there and then I use my brush to pick up the excess. That technique wasn't as successful with these eyeshadows because I'd make the kick up and then I'm like, all right, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. My brush was like, I don't want to pick it up. But anyway, moving along, we are going to start with On Set right here. We have Hollywood. Hollywood is a really nicely formulated shade. Then this is Filmmaker. We're kind of starting with the best of the best, the cream of the crop color-wise. Ooh, love that one right there. Just absolutely gorgeous. Swatches look terrible. Although I always wonder, people are like, oh, the swatches look terrible. Like, do we really expect anything to just one swipe complete opaque? I'm like, it seems a little bit of an unrealistic expectation. Then next up we have Strike a Pose, which is again that beautiful grungy khaki. I think I have a lipstick shade that's very similar to this. Action, which is one of the roughest and powdery ones ever. This one was a wee bit of a struggle to use. This was not a beginner-friendly eyeshadow. Then Walk of Fame, which is one of my least favorite formulated eyeshadows out of the palette, I would have to say. I mean, it's heckin' pigmented, but you gotta tread very carefully, and it's very powdery as well. And then this one is just kind of more akin to that thicker, kind of more like the Melt Cosmetics formula when I don't like it when they do their shimmers like that. It's not bad. It's just not my preferred formula. Then we have the Big Screen, which is, again, that greeny golden goodness. Then we have Bank on It, which is another, just so many greens in this, so many tones, so many shades, just absolutely does it for me. And then Showbiz right here, just, I mean, those three alone, I mean, just does it to me in so many different ways. Oh, just so stinking pretty. Next up is Your Moment, which is, and I mean, which is another beautiful shade, another beautiful shade, another beautiful shade. That's just sort of the theme of the color story here. We have got the Money Shot, which, aptly named, is just a phenomenal. Reminds me of a shimmer from Give Me Glow. I think maybe Key Lime by them. And then we have got Bling Bling. Just kind of just, ooh, that like, aqua isn't the right shade. I don't even know. But it's just like bluey green. It's not quite a bleen or a bloon or gloon. I'm not even sure. These ones right here. I mean, that one, I just, shimmy, shiny, beautiful, good gloriousness. Next up is Jackpot, which is, I live for these like goldy, lemony, beautiful green ones on these lighter ones. They're just absolutely gorgeous. We have Girl on Film and Green Screen. Green Screen, beautifully formulated, smooth, buttery, pigmented, blends like a dream. We've got these ones going on right here. I mean, absolutely beautiful, going there and there. Oh my goodness. I need to take some of these ones and just use them as a freaking highlighter on my face. Next is Audition, and this is where we start to get into like the pastier, lighter shade. Fame, Hungry, Record, which I like Record, the color a lot more, but it is formulated similarly to this one right here. Not quite as thick, not necessarily chunky, but definitely a little bit thinner, a little bit easier to use. And running out of real estate here. So stinking pretty though. And last but certainly not least, in my inner corner is Hard Cash. Oh my goodness, I live for that. Rewind, which is again the most pasty of them all, and then Born Star. Let me see where we can do we have enough space here? A little bit going on. Those look really kind of pasty. That's a little bit pitiful, but that one. Ooh, look at that shimmy, shiny. So here we have the color story going on here. Again, absolutely beautiful standouts. Each and just about every single shimmer. What is that shade? Is that just a really light pissy? Yeah, that was just a really light little pissy shade. I just those and that and just every single shimmer. That one's just not my jam, but I adore these khaki colors. That's a beautiful green. I mean, that and that, like when I think green, that's what I think of, those deep foresty colors. I love the fact that you have like the true greens, you've got a little bit of yellow undertone there, and then we've got these ones that are a little bit of blue. A really true full spectrum of green, not just sort of what you'd think where you're just like, ah, green. We've got different tones, we've got brown grungy greens, we've got sort of the khaki greens, we've got the true forest greens, the blue greens. Really truly is a thesis statement in the color story green. So, just sort of being straightforward, color story wise, there is very little that I would do to change this palette. Y'all know how I am. When I'm getting an eyeshadow palette, I don't want any redundant little pasty setting shades. I want color. I am paying for a full spectrum of an eyeshadow experience. So on this section here, I'm going to talk about the sections separately, and then we'll kind of do on a whole. The only one on here that I'm kind of like about is really this one, which is the lightest, pastiest, whatever setting shade. These are actually some of the only shades that I've ever actually enjoyed blending with, like going on my outer whatevers and making it softer and nicer and just an overall better blend. And I'll be the first to tell you that my blending is not entirely top notch. It's it's adequate for me and what I do, but I'm definitely not a makeup artist going out whatever and drawing Botticelli's The Birth of Venus on my eyelid. But with that being aside, I feel that this one is just about near perfection. This is just a beautiful, I would have purchased either of these just on their own, even if they weren't together in one palette. I talked about that before I knew it was one big giant palette. I was like, both of these absolutely F me up. So many of these shades I just absolutely love. I mean, I don't think there's a shade in this palette that I am not an absolute fan of. The only one that I'm like kind of a little bit and that has nothing to do with the color, this one in Theatrical, just because it is a more firmer pressed shimmer. You're gonna have to go in there a little bit more. Definitely use like a dense kind of like packing brush. That's what I use. I absolutely adore these colors here. Just like, if this for me is a neutral palette, if I were to go out and be like, I want some neutrals, this is what I would be skewing. I don't do typical taupe, brown, beige. I like it to have a little bit of an alternative pop, a little bit of grunge, a little bit of something that leans it less towards neutral, so like green-based neutrals, which is absolutely my shiz. I adore Ballin', I love Backstage, Script, Real Love, Perform. The matte to shimmer ratio on this is just about absolute perfection for me. We've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shimmers, and the rest are mattes, obviously. Y'all know how I am. The mattes are the backbone of a palette, and this palette, this particular section, has a very strong backbone. I absolutely love this. If this were a single palette all on its own, I would say if this is your color story, go out and buy it. I loved using it. It was a great experience. The shimmers, the mattes, the color story, the mustardy, that is like my fall color. I absolutely love this. I'm going to be using the shiz out of this. Then we have the top section, which color story wise, again, absolutely immaculate. Very little that I would change about this palette. Again, matte to shimmer ratio, absolutely perfect. These ones are a little bit pasty, but I can understand they do at least have a fair amount of show up, at least on my pasty eyelids. And then they've got all the other colors. I adore every single shimmer in here. That one is definitely my least favorite, just from a formulation standpoint. The color is beautiful, but I like my shimmers a particular way. Now, with this palette, like I said from the title, we've got she's a 10, but color story wise, absolute perfection. However, I do find with using this palette that this top section has a few more performance issues than the bottom section. Whereas you have shades like Onset, Action right there, a little bit of Hollywood, and some of the shades are just not as, I would say, smooth. They are not beginner shades. There is a little bit more of a technique and learning curve with this section than I would say the other one. That one you can just bust out and use whatever your skill level is, whereas this one is a little bit trickier. Like I said, this one probably the most disappointing shade in the whole palette, because I was expecting something to be a bit greener, a little bit deeper. When I went to put it on my eyelid, it was kind of like the that thing that I hate where you have the one color and then you go to add the other color and you're like, nope, there's pigment on there, but it's just piffing into the atmosphere, which y'all know, like I said, is one of my absolute pet peeves. However, I do adore all the shimmers. They are absolutely same as the bottom section, just beautiful and gorgeous. This green, this green, this green, this green, this green, this green, that green. I love these darker shades up here. They are going to be a bit more powdery, a little bit more coarse. You're going to have to kind of finagle that one a little bit. You just treat it nicely. Just blend very gently. This is the first time I am ever trying this company's eyeshadow formula. If any of y'all are more experienced in it and have any like tips or tricks or how you use it, definitely let me know down below. But all in all, I do love, like I said, the color story, absolute perfection, matte to shimmer ratio. There are just a few shades in here that when using that other section are just a little underwhelmingly formulated when you take into consideration how amazing that one section is. Like I said, that is very near palette perfection for me. Obviously, you have to get, if you get one, you get the other. I feel price point, I mean, I would pay that for this one. This one is just all kinds of beautiful. I honestly, going into it, I thought the top one would really be my shiz, whereas this one just absolutely effed me up. Loved every single second of using this. I know I'm going to be reaching this. I do think there is a lot of versatility. I mean, you look at this and it is just absolutely beautifully done. I mean, like I said, I could maybe perhaps not have curated a better color story. And I understand it's huge and it's ginormous, and I typically don't advocate for huge and ginormous palettes, but there isn't a lot, like if you're going to get one of the big ColourPop ones, one of those 35 color whatevers, there isn't a huge amount of overlap. There isn't a huge amount of pasty setting shades. You are getting fairly unique shades in each and every single eyeshadow. There's enough similarity between them to make them work well together. Just color story wise alone, this is probably one of my favorite things that has been released in 2022. Like I said, this one here, just abs. If you love this, if this is your ish right here, get it. If this is your ish right here, I mean, even with the kind of the finaglingness about some of these shades, I feel the amount of quality you get in this, and then the fact that it's not a huge amount of this one, you are still getting a significant amount of your money's worth in good, well, nicely formulated eyeshadows in a spectrum of beautiful greens. Now, while the eyeshadows are nicely formulated, especially on this bottom one, I'm not entirely sold that this would make me, like if they were to release another palette that was maybe not as an amazing color story as this, I may not be too inclined to just jump out and be like, yes, this is a formulation that absolutely F's me up. It's good. I like using it, but it isn't a formulation that stands out to me like the Melt Cosmetics formulas or Lunar Beauty or even He Who Should Not Be Named. But all in all, I am very pleased with what I spent on. I definitely have my money's worth. I'm now going to have to deal with storing this big giant behemoth of a thing, but I know for a fact that this is going to be a palette that I definitely go back to for a multitude of reasons. I am excited to use this in just every single possible way that I can. There is not a bit of this that isn't absolutely gorgeous. I just find that it's a nice, unique take on green because you really do, like I keep saying, you really just have that full spectrum. If green eyeshadow is your thing, this is a really nice palette to invest in. Well, there we have that review. I was beyond excited, and there was very little that could have prepared me. Like, I saw it online, obviously. When that arrived to me and I opened it, panties dropped. I just looked at it, I was like heavy breathing intensifies like that. Looking at that color story really makes me inspired, makes me want to play with makeup, makes me want to do all kinds of different eyeshadow looks. I've really, through my excessive spending on makeup over the years, I've really finally started to hone in on the makeup that is going to give me, like, I'm not just, oh, I'm buying this and this and this just because. I'm honing in on purchasing what really are things that I'm going to use rather than just frittering away willy-nilly on whatever gets released. Gone are the days of purchasing every Becca and Tarte holiday palette. Spending our money on what we're going to use, and I'm going to use the shiz out of that palette. Like always, I would love to know what y'all's opinions are of this palette. I had quite a few of y'all actually, hey, did you see this? I have seen it. I got it. I reviewed it. And I absolutely love it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you. And as always, keep it real. Mwah!